Welcome to Policy RX with the Rock Doc. I'm Eric Murdoch coming up to you from the doctor's office in Estes Park, Colorado. This episode, we are so honored to have Caroline Gleich in the house. We interview professional climbers, policy wonks, politicians, people who have a sort of a play in politics and DC and public lands policy. And Caroline checks a lot of boxes. I first met Caroline about 10 years ago in Bears Ears. We were flying over Bears Ears with some Native American representatives, and we were learning a lot about what public lands and national monuments mean to us and how we can collaborate with different stakeholders and tribes. And since then, Caroline has grown a lot, and I'm really interested to hearing the story and hearing what she thinks about what's going on with public lands today, what are the issues that concern her most, and what was it like to run for the U.S. Senate? So let's get into it. Welcome to Policy RX, Caroline.
Thanks for having me. The honor is truly mine.
Oh, thanks so much. So you're a professional skier and a mountaineer. What was the impetus for you to become an advocate for the environment, public lands, and social justice? Tell us the story.
Yeah, I would say my trajectory was I always had this childhood dream of becoming a professional skier and mountaineer. But in my family, it was you go to graduate school and you become a lawyer or a doctor or get your MBA or something. Being an athlete's not a job. So I was getting ready to graduate from college, which took me 7 years to complete. I was taking the slow road, making sure I had lots of time to ski. And I had a really awesome class left. Actually, it was one of the prerequisites that I delayed as long as possible because it sounded boring. It was American national government. And I had just been pushing it off. It didn't sound that exciting. And I finally took it, and I had an amazing teacher. And he was just so lively, and he made it so interesting. But he also made his tests really hard so that you'd have to participate in these forums to get extra credit. So you'd have to show up to a forum and ask a question and engage with the Hinckley Institute of Politics in order to pass the class. So I would go to these forums, and I found them fascinating, actually. And I'd always be in the front, asking my question. And he inspired me to sign up to do a political internship through the Hinckley Institute of Politics at the University of Utah. And there I was matched with an internship with Ted Wilson when he was Governor Gary Herbert's environmental advisor. So I was working for the environmental advisor for the Utah governor at the Utah State Capitol. But Ted Wilson was not like any normal government person. Ted Wilson was a legendary climber. He did the first ascent of the Great White Icicle, which is an awesome alpine ice route here in the Wasatch. And he really taught me how to run a meeting and how to bring people together to find common ground. And so through Ted and through his mentorship and this internship, I really learned how to show up, speak up, and how to kind of navigate government meetings and how to feel comfortable in that setting, because it can be really intimidating. But Ted just he trusted me so much. He just would let me fully run the meetings and did not micromanage at all. And he gave me a lot of confidence in myself to take my seat at the table, to take the head of the table, and to be able to bring together the governor's cabinet and talk about clean air or public lands. And I am so grateful to Ted for that experience. And Ted also ran for U.S. Senate. So when I announced my candidacy, he was so excited, so supportive, and he was just such a champion for me and for so many other people. So he passed away actually during my campaign, which was absolutely heartbreaking. So I really want the world to remember Ted, the way that he merged his love of the outdoors and with his advocacy. And I really want to keep Ted's spirit going alive.
That's a great story. And I think the thing that you did mention is that it takes a lot of guts to do what you did. And I'm wondering, you've skied some pretty gnarly lines, and it takes a lot of guts to do that. Do you think that helped you, your experiences outdoors and sort of challenging yourself out in the mountains? How did that help you when you were sort of deciding, your trajectory with running for office and other things that you've done?
I mean, I think whether it's speaking at a Bears Ears at the Interior, when the Secretary of the Interior came to Bluff.
I remember that.
Speaking at that, or All of that stuff is terrifying. Like it's terrifying. It's like thinking about leading some hard ice or like leading a hard pitch or dropping into a steep line. Like I get really scared all the time, and I would think that it would get easier, but actually for me I feel just as terrified now as I did before. And I don't know, it is really scary, and I guess I love to be scared and I love to suffer because I just keep choosing things that are painful and scary, and there's a lot of suffering. But I think that those kinds of things, they bring out something inside of us that we never knew we had. And when you set those goals, when you sign up, when you commit to showing up, yeah, it brings something out of you, and it's helped me find a lot of confidence in navigating the world. I feel like as a petite woman, like I have to overcome a lot of people's stereotypes about my intelligence or my strength or whatever it is. And so it was hard for me for a long time not to totally internalize that. And I had to really dig deep to find that belief in myself, to keep telling myself over and over that I deserve to take up space or to be where I was, or I don't know. And I think I still struggle with the imposter syndrome, but it's like, you have that stress and then you have the thing and then you do it. And then there's that incredible sense of relief and the confidence and just like the joy. And so I think I'm just also really addicted to it. And maybe it is like I think some of us in this world, we do kind of have a little bit of something different in our brain wiring, like that addiction to dopamine and that addiction to that rush. So for me, it's like a way to channel that addiction into something healthier that hopefully makes the world a little bit better, and like to keep me away from like drugs and alcohol or other vices I could be really into.
So running for U.S. Senate seems like a sufferfest more than anything else we're doing in the mountains. I want to know, I didn't talk to you when you decided to run. And I'm wondering, could you tell the story of sort of how you decided to run? How did you put together your team? How do you assemble a campaign? It just seems such a big lift and such a gutsy move. Like, how did that all play out?
Yeah. I mean, I had done so through the Hinckley Institute. Like a lot of my journey has been through the Hinckley Institute, and I've stayed involved with them. It's the political institute at the University of Utah, and a lot of different colleges and universities have a similar one. And so, even if you're not a college student, like you can get involved with these. And they had a candidate training through an organization called Utah Women Run, and I know how important it is from my work with you guys and with Patagonia and through lobbying over the years. I know how important it is for us to elect champions for protecting public lands and for climate action, because like a lot of it starts in the campaign process of like, who are the people on the ballot and how can we get more people that are willing to protect our interests to run and to be on the ballot. So I was really interested in this training. I wasn't thinking I would run myself, but I was more like, how can I, as like an engaged citizen activist and athlete, support candidates? But I met someone there like in a breakout, and I told her that I would love to take out Mike Lee in the Senate, just because like everybody wants Mike Lee out of the Senate. I think that's something we can all almost universally agree upon. And then flash forward to January of 2024. It was 48 hours before the filing deadline, and there wasn't a strong Democrat who had stepped up to run for the U.S. Senate seat. So somebody asked me if I would run, and I had 48 hours to think about it, which is actually the perfect amount of time, because if I had had any more hours, there's no way I would have done it. Like, it was kind of perfect in a sense, because sometimes you don't know exactly what you're getting into, and that's actually better. Like, it was better that I didn't know the full, how bad it could be. And yeah, I had a couple people that were willing to kind of help run the campaign, and so we got like, everything came together really last minute. And I mean, for this first campaign, I think that it was good just to like, but in retrospect, like I should have been fundraising for a full year before I filed, because you need a lot of money to run for, sadly, you need a lot of money to run for a seat like U.S. Senate.
So what was it like to run against, then Congressman Curtis? He's kind of a moderate Republican, supporter of public lands. Did you talk with him? Do you ever talk with him now? Like, how did that all play out? Or did you care who you were running against? Or What was your thoughts on, what were your thoughts
Well,
on that?
there were two people that had filed for the Democrat side, so I still had to get the official nomination through the
Hmm.
convention process, and then Curtis had to go through the convention and the primary. So I, we pretty much knew it would be him, but there was still some uncertainty. But I mean, Curtis has done a couple things for the climbing community in particular by introducing the Park Act. But then if you really dig into his record, he actually has a worse environmental voting record in Congress than Mike Lee. And so, like, I think he's done some good things, but I think he could do a lot more. And I kind of worry a little bit that he is sort of like greenwashing in a sense by giving Republicans cover through his conservative climate caucus. They can join, but then they never actually vote on any policies that would protect our air, water, and to take action on climate. And so it was definitely a little bit challenging to run against Curtis because he's a really nice guy, but at the end of the day, you know, it's a game, it's a competition, and I was not going to pretend to be his. I think he expected me to like play like his constituent while I was his opponent, and I'm a really competitive person, so I acted and like I wanted to run a serious campaign with serious opposition research. And so some of the opposition research, it just showed like where his funding is coming from and where his priorities have been are not really in line with what's in the best interest for the health of Utah and also for our planet.
Yeah, you went for it for sure.
It was
So,
hard to call him out. It was hard to call him out. And our relationship was like pretty good before. It's not in a great place right now. I would love to like, you know, or Senator Curtis, if you're listening, like would love to put the past behind us and work together. And, you know, I'd love to support your leadership. But yeah, I'd love to put the past in the past.
interesting. So if you were running today, obviously the political landscape is a lot different than it was even when you were running less than a year ago. What are the issues? What are the issues right now that most concern you? What would your platform look like today when you're talking? You know, this is the people who listen to this show are climbers who are interested in policy. They get in the weeds on these things. What would your platform look today? What should I be worried about with respect to public lands, the environment, climate, all these things?
Yeah, I mean, you know, when people run campaigns, it's like they always go back to the old adage, like it's the economy, stupid. And so I would definitely lead much more with economic benefits of protecting public lands, economic benefits of taking action on the climate crisis, and to frame it through the lens of jobs and economic benefits and cost savings and, you know, managing inflation. So I think I would frame things a bit differently than I did rather than leading with, because in the list of voter concerns, like sadly, climate is pretty low on the list of voter concerns. People are really concerned about jobs and the economy. And so those are a couple tweaks in the framing that I would make. But I think that, you know, it's really hard to run a campaign because it's so fast. Like you don't really have time to think. And the other thing is that so much is going around. So much of it is like what other people are like. There's a lot of things that are kind of out of your, it's hard to get control over everything. And so I think definitely I would have changed how we framed the campaign and like how we framed who I am as well, because I think like my team, they were pretty young, and I think that they were so excited about me as a candidate that they focused more on like me and my accomplishments and less on how I will serve Utah. And like I know this from marketing 101. It's like when I approach a brand for a partnership, I don't tell them like, check me out, I'm so rad. I always start by listening to what the brand needs and how I can serve their goals. And that's where a campaign needs to start too. It's like how I can serve Utah and how I will help Utahns rather than like how rad I am. Because nobody cares about that.
Does this mean you're going to throw your name in the hat again?
I don't know. I do not know. I mean, I would not rule it out. Like, there's something about having this condensed timeline. Like, it's sort of like it's really similar to training and preparing for an expedition. Like, it reminded me a lot of Everest, actually. Like, it's a huge amount of financial risk. Like, I don't think people realize the real financial risk you take on as a federal candidate, because one of the harsh lessons I learned is that if your candidate committee goes into debt at the end of the campaign, you are personally responsible to keep fundraising to pay off that debt.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, it's a massive amount of risk, and the amount of pressure and stress on your shoulders is like, I mean, there were times I just felt like I was going to break a little bit, but all the skills from expeditions and from big trips where you like wire transfer the money, you have the date, like that stuff really helped me prepare. You know, tearing my ACL 6 weeks before leaving to climb Everest, that really helped me prepare for being a US Senate candidate, because you can't like spiral about the unknown. You take it day by day, you do the best you can. And high altitude also, I think, was really helpful for training to be a US Senate candidate, because you get just really used to feeling really poorly. Like, you know, at high altitude, you have a bad headache. It feels like you have the flu, but you still have to go hike 10 miles. And that's like being a US Senate candidate. You might feel horrible on the inside, but you have to push all of that into a little box, and you have to show up and do the job every day, day in and day out. And so, like, I'm not saying people should do that all the time. Like, self-care is important. Rest and recovery are important. But some goals, you know, they're just willing to, some goals are kind of worth grinding yourself into pieces for, and then you can recover later.
Well, I was super impressed, and yeah, I just want you to know that I thought it was a really gutsy move.
Thanks, Eric. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it was absolutely terrifying, and like, I don't know if I would do it again. I think it depends on what happens with the gerrymandering and the redistricting in Utah. But my heart's in Utah. It's a hard state here, though.
So, you got any plans? Any trips planned? Anything coming up? Any books or podcasts or stories or trips in the works?
Yeah, I have my podcast too, the Caroline Gleich Show. So I have some episodes in production for that, and then I have a really exciting speaking opportunity this weekend. I'm not sure when this will air, but I will be speaking with Bernie Sanders at his Fighting Oligarchy tour for his Salt Lake City stop. So I'm so excited about that. And while I have some international trips and ideas, I also feel really motivated to go and, continue to explore and highlight Utah's public lands, our public lands in the West, and to show people all the nooks and crannies and how important it is to protect them. I think it's going to get this latest, proposal to sell our public lands to help pay for this billionaire tax cut bill in the Republicans' reconciliation package. I'm really concerned about the precedent that is going to send. And so I think we're going to need all hands on deck for the public lands fight ahead. And I really want to continue mobilizing our community to show up and speak up and to do everything we can to save our public lands and take action on climate.
Thanks for all you do. You're definitely preaching to the choir in the last one. The Access Fund rallied almost 10,000 letters in a couple days to try to keep, selling our public lands from being the de facto financier of our federal government. So you're preaching the choir in that one. To all the viewers, thanks for tuning in. Tune in a couple weeks. We'll have another exciting episode of Policy RX. We're really grateful for Caroline stopping by and hope to see you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you.